Trouble in Paradise podcast is intended for mature audiences. This means you will hear realistic adult language such as and go off. Audience discretion is advised.
What is knob polishing?
You're gonna make me say this. I am a neglected man.
I like to think that I look like a jack, even though my name's really Bob.
Does he have danglers or something?
Well, it's time to go do them lighthouse duties.
Sitting in the cheese at the old Walmart to cool off.
That should be the headline. Man tasered in the nuts after stealing beef.
Yeah, but you're not gonna sit in the cheese. You're not gonna sit in the cheese, and you're not gonna put ribeyes down your pants either.
House cleaning is secondary. So what is the Viagra triangle?
Possibly we aid in your digestion.
I don't know if his little hand is smaller than his little ears or what.
Aw, well maybe he has a syndrome.
Want to go check out my RV? It's parked right around the corner. Because I'm pretty sure that I saw some moose knuckle.
No.
There is absolutely some moose knuckle going on.
My swampy friend. What the hell is a swampy friend?
I know. So they're not going to get any scraping on their shaft.
Yes, I'm going to do a downward dog.
Okay, pretty lady. You had on those gosh darn sexy leather looking shorts.
Ladies and gentlemen, and assholes, gather around. It's time for another action-packed episode of
Trouble in Paradise.
Hi, I'm Nigel Kent.
And I'm Jazmine Starr.
And welcome to Trouble in Paradise.
Our show is a free-thinking, open-minded podcast discussing conspiracy theories, the paranormal, true crimes against humanity, plus our only in Florida stories. The content presented by Trouble in Paradise contains speculation and conjecture and is not intended as educational material or advice. It is therefore not misinformation and does adhere to YouTube's community guidelines.
It does adhere. So, according to YouTube, we are doing the world a favor with this program, coming at you live from beautiful South Naples in our top secret location, equipped with a green screen and a little 2-channel sound mixer. Jazmine Starr, how are you doing? How has your week been going?
It's been a bit of a week.
It's been a bit of a week. Yeah, well, it's Halloween week.
Yeah.
Did you have to cram for any special Halloween stuff? I mean, besides the show?
I did a lot of work on this show, so hopefully it's something that people will find interesting.
And that subject is the subject of paranormal activity surrounding Hollywood movie productions.
Yes, the cursed movies.
Cursed
Hollywood.
movies. And sometimes the paranormal activity is not necessarily evil, which we're going to talk about later on. And it's been a little while since you picked some poison, Jazmine Starr.
It has been a long time.
I mean, it's been a long time since you picked some poison.
Yes.
And
What better night to pick some poison than Halloween?
yes. And expect us to be interrupted over and over because the trick-or-treaters will surely be out in force. And although Jazmine left a giant bowl of candy out front, we expect
It says, do not, underline several times, knock on the door.
Right, because that will set off the dogs, and then you'll hear all kinds of cuss words coming out of Jazmine.
Shenanigans.
Yes. So we're going to do some Pick Your Poison. We're also going to do some Halloween-oriented only in Florida. I can't wait to go through that with you. And did we have one other thing planned? Or was that it? Did I cover everything?
No, you got it all.
All right. So let us start with some Pick Your Poison. A little bit of music to get us in the mood for Pick Your Poison. Now, this is a Halloween-themed Pick Your Poison. So I've got to ask Jazmine Starr.
Yes.
Pick your poison. Would you rather sleep on the bottom bunk from Dracula or from Frankenstein?
Dracula.
Why?
Well, because I'd get some neck.
Because you'd get some neck? You think Dracula would come down from his bunk and spend a little time on the first level?
Of course he would. Do you see me tonight with this wig and everything?
You know what? We should probably go over that. What are you, for the benefit of our listening audience that's not watching on YouTube, can you describe your costume to everybody?
Well, since I'm mean, I thought I would be a witch today, but I can't put a...
Are you a good witch?
Or a bad witch.
I'm a sandwich.
Yeah. You were a gross hot dog that just with mustard on it.
Well, I'm dressed as a professional baseball player because it's the only thing I had that I could throw together real quick. So I have my Cleveland Indians jersey on, and I think you look fabulous. Happy Halloween.
Thank you. Happy Halloween to you, too.
So we now know that you would rather
Connector.
spend the night with Dracula than Frankenstein. Hey, Dot Connector, welcome to the chat. All right. Jazmine Star, pick your poison. Would you rather be the Incredible Hulk's mechanic giving him a transmission repair estimate, or be the Predator's dental hygienist?
I am going to go with the estimate.
You'd rather deliver bad transmission repair estimate to the Incredible Hulk than
Yeah.
clean the Predator's mouth?
Yeah. I don't like teeth, and you know that.
Well, have you seen the Predator? Like,
I know, and when he opens his mouth and there's all that like spit and snot and like gooey stuff.
it's like a vagina with tusks.
It's just
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
yeah. So I have no
So that one was the easy one.
I have no fear over the Hulk.
All right, Jazmine Star, no peeking. Pick your poison. Would you rather only be able to sleep during the day or only be able to sleep every other night?
Sleep during the day. I did it for 18 years.
Yeah, that's fair. So quantity over quality.
Yeah.
You would probably do a lot of sleep skipping when you were a nurse.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Well, you are a nurse, but you don't work the midnight shift anymore. That would be right along the lines of Dracula, all right?
Pretty much. As soon as the shift was over and you go out and you're driving into the sunlight and everything, it was like...
All right, so Jazmine Star, pick your poison. Would you rather swim 30 yards in the ocean with Jaws on the loose or have to run 100 yards to safety with Cujo in your way?
Ooh. I'm gonna go with Jaws.
Wow, you're going to take 30 yards in the ocean with Jaws, huh?
Yeah, I am.
You'd rather die by Jaws than by Cujo.
Hell yeah.
I mean, maybe you could just outswim a shark, you know?
Well, I'm thinking, Jaws, like, I would literally go in the entire mouth and that would just be it. Cujo, I'd be mauled to death.
Oh, so you're assuming that you're not going to beat either one of them.
No, neither one is I can't beat either one of them. And Cujo, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, you get dog slobbered. You'd get grossed out and mauled at the same time because Cujo had like a pretty big slobber problem, I think.
Yeah, I'd have rabies, and I'll keep the political
All
part
right.
of that out of there.
You're going to catch the Rona from a dog, from a horror movie dog?
No, I was thinking about the jab.
Okay, now, this one is I'm going to give you a benefit here, and that is that you are armed with a pistol.
Okay.
So, armed with a pistol, pick your poison.
Okay.
Would you rather be abducted by a UFO whose intentions you don't understand, or be locked inside a house with Jason? And I don't mean to Jason and your family. I mean Jason
Jason Voorhees.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Is that what he's called?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. I am going to go with the UFO.
Okay, so you'd rather take your chances on a UFO.
Yeah.
All right. Do you think pistols work against spacemen?
Probably not.
Okay. I guess
But I'm curious.
be more funner.
I'm definitely curious about that one. So.
All right. Jazmine Star, pick your poison. Would you rather have to choose, which would you choose to be the only food you can eat for the rest of your life? Halloween candy corn or Tootsie Rolls?
Tootsie Rolls.
That's a no-brainer. Does anybody like Halloween candy corn?
I do.
Ew.
I do. But I could only handle that in small quantities. So if I needed to like bulk up, I'm going Tootsie Rolls.
Tootsie Rolls.
I'm going to bulk up with some. There's a lot of Tootsie Rolls outside right now, by the way.
I wonder if either of those candies has any actual nutritional value.
Yeah, they do. Sugar.
Well, yeah.
It's a carb.
It's a quick energy right now.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of quick energy.
I like the way it kind of gets stuck in your teeth and everything. And you got to, savor the flavor of a Tootsie Roll.
Well, yeah, a Tootsie Roll can pull your molar out if you chew it.
Well, you want to try it?
No. I need my molars. It's the only way I can eat nuts.
These nuts.
Okay, so you have done a ton of research about Hollywood movie productions whose crews experienced some kind of paranormal activity, and specifically like negative paranormal activity.
Right.
What movie is first up on your list of movies that you've looked at, Jazmine Star?
First movie that I'm going to talk about is the Poltergeist trilogy.
All right.
So,
Poltergeist.
Yeah. So, one thing that is important whenever you look at these movies is that anytime a film decides to do a movie where they're looking into the occult, sometimes you're knocking on doors that shouldn't be opened.
All right. So these spirits like to interact with movies that are about them, like a guest appearance or a cameo?
Well, you have the potential of opening up a doorway that you don't necessarily want to open up. Now, in order for something to be cursed, technically, you look for some kind of tie, some kind of history or something. If we go to a picture of Jo Beth Williams in the movie Poltergeist in the swimming pool, she has all these skeletons that are around her.
All right.
So the movie was released in 1982. The prop department purchased human skeletal remains from India.
Oh, boy.
That were used for medical research. Jo Beth Williams in the swimming pool believed they were plastic props, but was told that plastic was too expensive. So they used real human remains that they essentially could buy from India and pennies on the dollar.
Wow.
And
so the image that we're looking at now is that of real human remains?
Yes, those are actual human remains that were taken from cadavers that had been used for medical research in India. The props department didn't want to pay for rubber or plastic props.
So they just got dead bodies.
Yeah, because they were cheaper.
And told the actress
so they took these bodies and they transported them, from India, had them imported to the lot, and they used actual human remains. So the remains had been obviously transported, disturbed. They were being used in ways that they really shouldn't have been, and in an occult-like way.
So she didn't know, the actress didn't know that these were actual human remains? She thought that they were mocked up props?
They did initially until the props crew finally came clean and said. And Heather O'Rourke is the little girl that played Carol Ann, would also play with the human remains.
Play with the human remains?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like...
I mean, if you're a little kid on the set, you are trying to occupy your time sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So Poltergeist, 14 unexplained events and 4 deaths. The picture with Jo Beth Williams, again, just in the swimming pool. One of the things that would happen is during filming, she would go home and find in her hallway all of her pictures had been turned. So she would go home and she would straighten the pictures out.
Wow.
Go back the next day of filming, and then she would find when she returned home that all of the pictures in the hallway that she had straightened the day before had been turned again.
No kidding.
Dominique Dunn was also would come home and find books on her shelves. Dominique Dunn was the teenage girl that played in the movie.
Okay. And she said that what happened to her? Her books were rearranged?
So she had a bookshelf, and when she would come home, the books would either be have fallen on the floor, or they would be sitting on a table somewhere. She would replace the books back on the bookshelf, only to return and find that the books were back on the floor the next day.
Interesting. Wow. Okay.
So Oliver Robbins, he's the little boy that was in the movie. And one of the scariest scenes in the movie is that involves him, aside from, I think, the one where he's being ripped out of the bedroom by the giant tree, is one with the clown. And I know as a kid growing up and watching it, that, this clown was just, a nightmare.
Yeah, that's an insidious looking clown.
Right.
Even by clown standards, that's pretty bad.
So during filming, Oliver Robbins had a traumatic experience with the clown doll. The animatronic operator would put the clown's arms around Oliver's neck to strangle him. There was a moment where the animatronic operator's controls stopped working and the clown continued to strangle Oliver.
So it was a legitimate strangulation, or it was an acting thing?
Well, the film crew thought he was just doing an incredible job acting as his breathing became labored. Steven Spielberg noticed his color changing and that he was turning blue, came over and ripped the clown off, and it's believed that perhaps Spielberg saved Oliver's life.
How do they create a prop or an animatronic that is even capable of harming somebody? Everything's supposed to be acting, right? This is supposed to be a simulation. Why would they build a prop that can actually do... Hey, this kind of reminds me of some current news right now with a certain Baldwin, but I guess we probably shouldn't go there.
Well... There are several Baldwin things that I came across. So it's kind of interesting.
Okay.
James Caan is the author of Poltergeist. One evening, he was at the MGM building writing late. He would give his written pages to this woman, Marcy, and she would type it into the script.
So James Caan was the writer of the script.
That's correct.
But isn't he also an actor in the film?
No.
Okay.
When he was working on a particularly scary scene, he wrote, "Thunder and lightning ripped the sky. There was a huge clap of thunder and lightning, believed to have hit the building, the lights going out, and the face of the AC in the room blew off and flew across the room. And then, according to both of them, Caan and Marcy, suddenly all the video games in the room turned on and began playing themselves."
You mean like pinball machines or arcade cabinets or... That kind of video games?
They didn't specify what kind of video games they had. But,
Interesting.
But the power, was out, and then the video games turned on and began playing themselves.
With the power out.
Yes.
That's extremely bizarre. This was on set?
No, this was when he was in the MGM building, and he was writing.
Interesting stuff. So the power was out, and yet all these video game machines.
He had written "Thunder and lightning ripped the sky." There was a huge clap of thunder and lightning, believed to have hit the building.
So just as he wrote it, it happened.
Right.
Wow.
Right, and that's why they said, it was just literally he wrote those words. Same thing happened. Power goes out, and then all of a sudden, the video games then turn on and start playing in the room.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah. A month after filming ended on the first movie, Dominique Dunn was murdered by her ex-boyfriend John Sweeney. She was at home rehearsing for a new role in the TV show V when he arrived, and he was working, and she was working on a script with David Packer.
Is this Dominique Dunn here on the picture?
No, Dominique Dunn is the young teenage girl.
Oh, I see.
With the pink shirt.
Oh, all right. Let me find her.
He asked if he could come in, and she stepped outside rather than talk in front of David. Sweeney began to choke Dominique Dunn in the driveway, dragged her by his arm towards the grass. Packer, hearing the argument along with other neighbors, did not intervene because he stated he was afraid due to how big Sweeney was. He called a friend and left a message on the answering machine that if he died tonight, John Sweeney did it. Then he called the LAPD, who said it wasn't their jurisdiction, and if he was any kind of a man, he would go out and help her. After a possible second call, Packer finally went out, looked over the fence, and saw Sweeney holding Dunn's lifeless body in his arms. And Sweeney told him to call the sheriff's office and tell them he had seriously injured his girlfriend. He was finally taken into custody, and Dunn succumbed to her injuries. During trial, testimony by Sweeney's former girlfriend, Julianne Pierce, who had been seriously injured by him in the past, including hospitalizations, broken bones, and strangulation, was suppressed by Judge Katz, saying it would prejudice the jury about John Sweeney.
But he had been previously convicted?
There were numerous reports, like police reports and hospitalizations documented.
Oh, wow.
And Judge Katz suppressed her testimony in favor to say that the jury would be prejudiced against John Sweeney.
So, and John Sweeney was the boyfriend or husband of the actress in the movie?
He was a boyfriend that she had broken up with.
Okay, wow.
The judge kept trying to lower the charges in the case and mentioning manslaughter to sway the jury several times. Sweeney received only 6.5 years, and with time already served, would be out in as little as 2.5 years.
So that sounds like a conspiracy. It sounds like a bought murder a little bit, doesn't it?
There were several things. It took a third phone call after Sweeney said, call and let them know that I've seriously injured my girlfriend. But she was already gone.
That's crazy. But this was after the conclusion of the first movie? Like they had already wrapped on it, or? Just
after they had wrapped on it, and she had just started shooting V.
Wow.
Or practicing.
For V. Yeah. I remember V.
Yeah.
About the lizard people.
So we're going to move on to Poltergeist 2. On day one of filming, the review of the dailies, everything they shot was completely a black negative, nothing recorded.
Wow.
They had used the real skeletal remains again that day.
Oops.
Yep.
I mean, the ADs had to be really, really pissed, right? Like, what's wrong with the equipment?
Yeah.
And so that's a whole. So they lost an entire set of dailies and had to reshoot everything from that day.
That's correct.
On the first day of filming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have been like, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm done.
So there's a picture that I pulled up as well that has the old man, the evil preacher, Cain from Poltergeist 2, was played by Julianne Beck. In 1983, Beck had been diagnosed with stomach cancer.
I don't know who that person is. Is this that person?
Which took his life. No.
No, that's clearly not.
It's fine.
All right. Keep on trucking.
Which took his life soon after he finished work on the second installment of the series. Now go ahead and pull up that one right there for me, please. Thank you.
This one?
Yes.
All right. This is a photograph of the Native American man with the little blonde-haired girl in his arms.
Yes. Will Sampson there. He's holding Heather O'Rourke in his arms. He was in the second Poltergeist movie. He was an actual Indian shaman that played the role of a Native American on the set. And when he came on set, he immediately felt that something was wrong and needed to be taken care of. That night, when he entered the set, he requests the crew to go home, leave the back door open, and he performed a shamanic exorcism of the set. The crew immediately felt a change in the energy for several days following the exorcism by Will Sampson. Early in the shoot, Will was fine, but he progressively started to become ill, needing oxygen. He died from complications following what was supposed to be a routine surgery that turned into a major surgery. He was only 52 years, and the passing was 1 year after the shamanic cleansing on the set.
Crazy. So he's this Native American shaman who they've recruited to play a Native American shaman in the film.
Right. And he enters the set and notices that there's a problem and performs an exorcism to only die a year later.
Wow.
He had been previously healthy and then
it makes you wonder if he took on some of that negative spiritual energy.
Yeah. So then,
or if it attacked him.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So there's a picture then of Craig T. Nelson and him together. Craig T. Nelson went to the gravesite to visit him. The cicadas were extremely loud. Nelson stated that he was there to Will's gravesite, and immediately the cicadas were completely silent.
So when he got to the gravesite, the cicadas silenced.
Yeah, he went up to the gravesite and he said, "Hey, Will, it's Craig." And then immediately...
It's like they turned off.
Complete silence of the cicadas.
And that would be an unmistakable... You couldn't not notice that because cicadas are extremely loud. Nelson
was a skeptic of the curse, but said for the first time he believed that there was something there. He, quote... I am convinced, Nelson said, that the presence of Will Sampson on this film saved us from tragedy. Sampson not only plays a shaman, he himself is a shaman. And I believe that it cost him dearly in terms of his own personal health to see us safely through.
Wow. That's quite an what do you call a speech at a funeral? A eulogy? That was quite a eulogy that Craig T. Nelson gave. Fantastic.
So, moving on then to Poltergeist 3, they had a scene in the parking garage where pyrotechnics were going to be used to create a 30-foot fireball. In 7 seconds, the command to put the fire out was given on a walkie-talkie by the co-director, and it did not work. The fire department on standby came rushing in as smoke was bellowing through the vents. The entire garage and cars were destroyed, creating $2 million in damage.
Wow. So was that the walkie-talkie didn't work or what?
He gave the order through the walkie-talkie, and yes, it didn't work.
Nuts. So that one seems like it's just maybe as a technology problem as opposed to like a...
Well, according to the crew, like this fireball was far beyond... Yes, it could have been a pyrotechnic problem, but the fireball that was supposed to happen like completely just like erupted and like destroyed this entire garage, causing $2 million in
Interesting.
damages.
Yeah, so this was way more fire than what they were planning on.
Very much so.
Okay.
So
that was Poltergeist 3.
Yeah, that's during Poltergeist 3. There's another picture I've got where you see Heather O'Rourke, and she's standing in a puddle. And during that scene, arms were supposed to come up and grab her and pull her into the water. The special effects crew rushed to get her off. It was a 5,000-gallon tank with 8-inch sides of glass that began to crack from the inside. The special effects stated that if it broke, many people would be injured or die. They had to abandon that set.
Crazy.
The older woman that Zelda Rubinstein, that played the psychic in the first movie, she continued like throughout the other movies. Zelda Rubinstein in Poltergeist 3 was not free from being affected either. During the movie photo shoot, she felt a jolt go through her. The producer, Barry Bernardi, gets a phone call that her mother had just died. When they went to review the proofs, the moment she felt the jolt, and you can see in this photo frame, there's a little bit of
like smoke,
a mist. Every other proof is completely clear except for that one, and that's when she felt the jolt. There was this, and it was completely blown out. But Barry Bernardi gets a phone call that her mother had just died.
So she gets a jolt, and a few minutes later finds out that her mom had passed.
Right. They went to review the proofs, saw the complete blowout. They sent the proofs to Kodak to have it evaluated, and Kodak couldn't explain why that one single frame was the way that it was.
Interesting. And they probably were shooting click, 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 click. I mean, they were probably photographing her quite a bit if she was...
Right. And when you look at the full list of proofs, it's actually pretty interesting.
Interesting.
The engineer in the John Hancock building that was sitting there as they were filming, sat down in a chair and fell asleep. When they were done filming...
Is this John Hancock building was part of a location where they were filming? Like
on the third Poltergeist, it was in a skyscraper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like a penthousey kind of place and everything. So the engineer for the John Hancock building where they were filming sat down in a chair and fell asleep. When they were done filming and he went to wake him up, they realized he had died supposedly of natural causes.
What?
While sitting in the chair. That was the only time the director stated he'd ever had someone die on the actual set.
Yeah, this was an old guy? I mean, who takes a nap in the middle of the day anyway? Unless it's,
Well, I mean, if they're there all day and they're bored and they just sit down and you've never
killing time,
like not off. So there's Richard Lawson. He was in the original Poltergeist.
Describe Richard Lawson.
He's an African American gentleman.
This guy here with the mustache.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Richard Lawson.
He was part of the original Poltergeist crew, and he was one of the investigators that came into the home to collect data in the movie. He boarded a U.S. Airways flight from LaGuardia to Cleveland when someone in the crew recognized that he was in the movie and moved him from coach to first class. He stated oddly, "I shouldn't be on this plane. Something is going to go wrong." During takeoff, the plane crashed. 27 of the 51 people on board died. Lawson survived the crash. However, the person that was sitting in his coach seat that he was moved to did die.
That is really remarkable. And the fact that it was revealed to him that something was up is also really remarkable. And this guy was in the first film and in the third film.
He was just in the first film.
Okay.
Yeah, just chronologically when the plane crash occurred.
Oh, I see. So this was years after the fact.
Yeah, he just happened to be, but he just had that premonition where he was like, I'm not supposed to be on this plane. Here they had moved his seat from coach to first class. And
It'd be interesting to kind of find out what his background was prior to getting into the movie, like if he was like spiritually oriented to begin with, or if he was a professional spiritualist, because in the movie he plays an investigator, right?
Yeah, a paranormal investigator. According to any of the research I did, they did not have anybody on the set that was actually in the investigative field or into the occult or anything to make sure that things were being handled properly, as in the skeleton prop, stuff like that. So they just believe, it continued the curse. If you'll pull up Heather O'Rourke, we all know that beautiful little face, Carol Ann from the movie. Heather O'Rourke is, of course, the most famous death in the trilogy, as she was the face of Carol Ann for the entire brand. While her sister was dancing in Pennies from Heaven, Steven Spielberg saw Heather and approached her and her mother. He asked her if she could read, and she said yes, she could, and he had her scream several times. She was awarded the role. And Gary Sherman refers to her as a 35-year-old and an 11-year-old body. During Poltergeist 3, and how much Spielberg and he just loved her. They noticed during filming that her appearance began to drastically change. Her cheeks were puffing out and her neck was swollen. Sherman states that they had her going to doctors and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. The morning of her death, her mother states that she hadn't eaten the day before and that she needed to eat a piece of toast before school. When she reached her hand out, she realized that Heather's fingers were blue and tried to get her to eat, which blows my mind. And Heather said that she couldn't swallow. So at that point, her mother calls 911.
Yeah, forget about the blue fingers.
Right.
That wasn't obvious enough. But then you say that they found something really, really kind of disturbing after she passed. What was it? She said, Heather turned to her and said, "Mom, I'm sorry." Then the paramedics told her mother not to turn around because they had begun CPR. She was life-flighted to a San Diego hospital. First reported as a flu complication, it was later corrected that she died from during surgery for an intestinal infection that she suffered during recent Poltergeist filming. According to her mother, an initial x-ray had been misread and her intestines had begun to leak, causing her to die of septic shock. Gary Sherman states that the tabloids immediately began to come after him for the curse, and he didn't want to talk about it. They did not want to release the film after her death, according to the directors. They only had 17 pages left to shoot, using a double as Heather, but MGM threatened if they did not do it, they would find somebody that would. Yeah, it's always about the buck.
Yep.
This one wasn't directed by Spielberg, though. This is like he did the old switcheroo, right? The bait and switch, where he just executive produces the sequels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was involved in the casting and part of the direction. Her mother sadly discussed a premonition before Christmas, saying that Heather asked her mother if she had learned how to use the new camcorder. She asked her what for. Heather stated, "Well, in case I'm not here someday."
Wow.
It still bothers her mother to this day.
I bet.
So there you have the curse of Poltergeist.
The curse of Poltergeist. Wow, that is deep. That is So many different angles there, and I bet you haven't even covered all of them. There's probably a few more items out there that are,
Yeah.
things that aren't well known. So, Dot Connector has a couple of comments. He said Hollywood was named after the satanic black magician's wand, which was made of Hollywood. I wonder if a satanic priest was on the set. That's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So, my cursed movie, or paranormal movie, if you will. Once I closed my OneNote, bear with me. I was frantically trying to find photographs for Jazmine Star, and I closed my OneNote like a new kid. So I'm reopening it. And since OBS is running, OneNote is crawling. Okay. The Amityville Horror is a film based on a real-life tragedy, supposedly, that took place in the lives of the people who bought a house that had 6 murders conducted inside of it.
The DeMeos.
Yes, DeFeo. Ronald DeFeo Jr. shot 6 of his family members. Now, there have been several movies based on these events, but the crew of the original film in 1979 experienced some weird phenomenon, especially James Brolin, who's a pretty well-known actor. I don't think this was his breakout role, but he was in his maybe mid to late 30s when they made this movie. He tells everybody that he was convinced to join the crew of this movie while reading the script, a pair of pants fell off of a hanger in his hotel room. I mean, I guess that could happen if you've got like a hanger with a pair of pants that's sort of in front of a air duct or something, like if you give it enough. But while reading the script, and he said it was during a horrifying part of the script, pants jumped off and he said, "That does it, I'm taking the part."
The pants jumped off and he says, "I'm taking it.
I'm taking it, doggone it." Here, let's see if we can find the old Amityville Horror house to show everybody. Have a peek at this thing. And, yep. Well, of course, it just decided to do that. I'm still figuring out. No, that's Poltergeist. Oh, for Pete's sake. I'm done with the picture thing. We're not using screen cap for the rest of this episode, and hopefully everybody will appreciate that.
Yeah.
At any rate, so, but the Amityville Horror is subject to a lot of debate because they remade it in 2005, and if you believe the book about the Amityville murder tragedy, then apparently this guy did all of his murders at 3:15 in the morning. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that means that he murdered all 6 people on the same night at 3:15, or if he murdered them on consecutive nights at 3:15. I'm not exactly sure how it went, but Ryan Reynolds, who's the star of the 2005 remake, claims that every night that they were filming the film, he woke up at 3:15 a.m. Now that's kind of crazy. And to make matters worse, while they were filming the 2005 remake, a body washed up at the boathouse next door, apparently completely unrelated, but a dead body just kind of showed up, like, "Hey, Amityville, hi, I'm a dead body." Now, Kathy Lutz is the originator of the Amityville Horror concept, and she's one of the people who bought the house after the DeFeos estate, I guess, or whatever, presumably put the house on the market and sold it. Now, the Lutzes, Kathy Lutz, moved in, bought the house, and she claims to have been haunted in the house a year after the killings took place. Now, she died during the filming of the remake, which is just an odd coincidence. But a lot of people think the Lutz's family stories of hauntings were written purely for commercial gain, and some paranormal investigators have gone to the house and concluded there's not much going on.
I've heard that too. But yet I do know that I believe Ed and Lorraine Warren had gone out and investigated the house, which is, if anyone that's not familiar with Ed and Lorraine Warren, they're highly recognized in the paranormal community.
And they concluded that there was something going on?
Yes, I do believe they did.
So that power could have been, or that influence, that demonic influence could have been perhaps what tormented DeFeo and triggered him to conduct those murders, you think? And maybe the power was already there before the murders happened, or did it happen as a result of them?
No, DeFeo was actually being oppressed. There's when you look at things like possession and stuff like that, you have 3 stages. You have infestation, then you have oppression, and then you have possession. So there are certain chains of events that typically happen with some of this stuff. And it's an interesting case because you have so much conflicting. As a previous paranormal investigator, if you put anybody that's tech related into a case like that, they're going to pick apart any kind of evidence. If you put somebody that's sensitive, like a psychic medium in there, and they're actually getting information that can be useful and also backs up the data and can validate that, then you have a completely
They'd be
different...
more affirming opinion about it. Well, how about children? I mean, the children who lived in the Amityville home with Kathy Lutz, one of them's name was Daniel Lutz, and he was 9 at the time of the supposed haunting. And he didn't tell too many stories when he was a kid, but now that he's grown up, he's pretty vocal about everything. In fact, he made a documentary called My Amityville Horror, which he released in 2013. His siblings didn't want to participate, and interviewers described Daniel Lutz as an angry man who chain smokes and sulks about the past. Daniel Lutz is still alive and continues to perpetuate the Amityville story in the absence of his parents, and this is what Kathy was criticized for, trying to use it for commercial purposes. Mm-hmm. Now, there are other children in the picture. Missy Lutz says that Daniel Lutz is alone in maintaining that the Amityville Horror was true. In fact, even the step-siblings claim it was a hoax. 3 of the 5 children in the Lutz family were Kathy's kids from a previous marriage. One of those kids was Chris Coratino. Now, Coratino was 7 at the time of the supposed haunting, and he's had a few choice words for his stepfather. Christopher Coratino said, so far there's been 3 representations of what happened in that house, and not one of them is accurate. So that's a pretty outspoken thing for somebody who has nothing to gain by virtue of commenting on these movies. So it went so far that George Lutz actually sued Coratino in court. So here he's suing his stepson for trademark infringement and fraud. I mean, that tells you pretty much all you need to know, I think, about what the value of the word Amityville is to the Lutzes. They stumbled across something very, very successful with the help of a novelist. Missy Lutz, who was 5 at the time, says that yes, the experience was traumatic, but she's not referring to the Lutz family feud, but she is referring rather to the Lutz family feud that followed the fabricated events, not the haunting itself. You can expect more pop culture references to the Amityville haunting, as almost every one of the Lutz children is planning a film, a movie, or a book to tell their side of the story.
Yep.
So this is one of those ones where there's a couple of interesting supernatural tie-ins that seem extremely coincidental. The real intrigue to me is the murder, or the multiple murder case that happened before any of this nonsense happened.
The DeFeo murder. Yeah.
So that's the curse of the Amityville Horror.
And they totally redid that house.
Yeah, they got rid of the windows that look like eyes, creepy eyes.
Yeah, they totally changed the facade.
All right, Jasmine Starr, who do we have on the live chat?
We have Dot Connector and we have Miss Ashley joining in on the live chat.
Well, hello, Dot Connector again. Hello, Miss Ashley. Welcome to the live chat. Happy Halloween, everybody. If that's your thing, All Hallows Eve.
Yes.
Jasmine, what's up next?
All right. Let's get into the curse of the Exorcism.
Oh,
the Exorcist.
Man. The Exorcist. Well, let's do it. What do you got? This one can't possibly be as detailed and well documented as the previous one that you did with the Poltergeist.
Well, there's quite a bit of documentation, but the curse is definitely a bit different. The movie released and terrified audiences in 1973 and still remains one of the scariest movies ever released. We have to again examine why there may be a potential curse aside from the obvious subject matter in the case. History enthusiasts will note that the movie opens in northern Iraq, a region that refers to Pazuzu, the dangerous king of demons depicted throughout the movie, The Exorcist. They based it on an exorcism case, an actual case of a boy by the name of Roland Doe from Cottage City, Maryland in the 1940s that the Catholic Church had detailed information on.
So the original possessed child was a boy in real life?
Yes.
Okay.
He was a 13-year-old boy, Roland Doe. William Peter Blatty got the information from the first priest that attempted an exorcism on the 13-year-old boy. And when this priest had gone in to perform the exorcism, Roland punched through his mattress, ripped out a piece of metal, and slashed the priest's arm from his wrist to his elbow.
So he punched through the mattress, got a spring.
And was able to slash him
Wow.
from wrist to elbow.
That's incredible strength for a kid.
He was possessed.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sorry, you got me sidetracked there. The first priest that attempted an exorcism on 13-year-old boy being told that the case was the real deal and not to use the boy's name in writing the novel. He changed the name in his 1971 novel to make the victim a girl, thus creating a perfect storm for things to go awry, much like we witnessed during the case of the Poltergeist movie curse. After the novel hit the bestseller list for 55 weeks, Warner Brothers scooped up the rights to the story. After being turned down to direct from many great directors, even Kubrick, William Friedkin was the director that ended up taking the position.
Friedkin.
Yes.
So Kubrick passed on the offer of directing The Exorcist.
There were actually four that Kubrick was one of them, but four different directors passed on it.
Well, anytime Kubrick is attached to anything, even in a remote way like this, it's intriguing because the guy's a walking intrigue machine.
Yeah. Demonology is an important part of the Catholic doctrine that really ought to be studied again. Pope Paul said upon the theatrical release. The Pope's words benefited the marketing campaign for The Exorcist and may have helped fuel beliefs in some of the eerie rumors. Moviegoers reported to feel ill or faint while watching it.
Well, I mean, it's one of the most disturbing films ever made and has some of the most grotesque visual effects, practical visual effects ever filmed. I would probably not feel very well either, especially if I saw it on the big screen.
Yeah. According to Linda Blair, who played Reagan in the film, this was all part of an elaborate scheme to pump the publicity of the movie. Cast were beginning to be spooked, feeling as though the devil were after them and to stop making the movie. They traveled to Jesuit College in Georgetown, to Georgetown University, where several scenes were filmed, and spoke with Father Thomas King, and Blatty asked if he would bless the set. He said, of course, performed a blessing, and sprinkled holy water amongst the set. Aside from the fan frenzy surrounding the movie, there were some truly awful things that did occur during the filming of the movie. Filming began in August 1972. In September of 73, Jason Miller, who played Father Damien Karras, had taken his 3 children to the beach. His 5-year-old son, Jordan, was hit by a motorcycle, crushing both of his legs, putting him in critical condition. He fortunately made a miraculous recovery, but it was the beginning of casting an insidious shadow for the film. Max von Sydow, who played Father Lancaster Marin, and is the iconic picture of the priest walking up to the home, which you have pulled up there. Began his first day of shooting. The next day, he received a call saying that his brother had died unexpectedly in Stockholm. By January 1973, the atmosphere was growing even more tense, and crew were truly believing that they were under attack by the devil.
So we've got these crew that are having these fear-based feelings, paranoid feelings, and you now have you have a death and a physical attack on 2 of the family members of 2 of the actors in the film.
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And this is all before the movie even came out or anything.
This is during, just during the filming.
All right.
By January 1973, the atmosphere was growing even more tense, and the crew truly believing they were under attack by the devil. Actor Jack McGowan, who played Burke Dennings, Reagan's first victim in the movie set, died 2 weeks later at the age of 54 from flu complications after finishing his scene for the movie.
That's the same initial coding for the cause of death of the young girl from Poltergeist.
Exactly. There was an instance of a supposed fire on the set, and the only part of the set that was not destroyed was Reagan's room.
Wow.
Yep.
All right. Now, is Reagan the...
Reagan is played by Linda Blair, and she's the girl that was possessed.
Okay.
That needed the exorcism to be performed on her.
All
She's
right.
the one that you see whose head rotates all the way around, and she spits the split
awesome.
pea soup.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, that's Reagan.
Tasty.
Yes. In one scene, Linda Blair was attached to an apparatus that would make it look as though she were having convulsions. During the filming of the scene, the equipment that she was laced into became loose, and Blair fractured the lower part of her spine.
That's not good.
She began screaming and writhing in pain as she cried. Crew believed she was acting. This true scene made it in the final cut because that is the time when they said they would see the most terror on her face.
So they kept the scene in which she was actually being tortured,
and that's what
broke her back,
and that's what they wanted
in the movie.
Yes, and that's what they wanted the film for authenticity. She has continued to pay for the injuries since filming for the rest of her life.
I imagine so. That's absolutely terrible.
And I just want to make kind of a little connection here, if it sounds familiar, to Oliver and Poltergeist being choked by the animatronic doll now.
Yeah. And they thought the crew in that case thought that he was acting
like he was, he was a method actor, and they're like, he's doing such a great job with this labor breathing and everything. Here she's screaming, writhing in pain because she's been had her back fractured.
Yeah.
And they think she's just they're rolling.
She's just doing it. She's doing her thing.
And they thought it was incredible, and so they actually kept that as the final in the final
Wow.
cut.
All right. What else? As we wrap up The Exorcist here.
The scene when Ellen Burstyn, who is Reagan's mother, is pulled by a harness to hit the wall was also injured. Blatty had a disregard for safety in many ways and nodded to the special effects man to give it to her. At which time the movie you see Burstyn hit the wall. The look of pain and agony in the movie is real, with her face afterwards shooting that scene. Many sadistic scenes were shot in this manner just to get the right look for the camera. In order to...
So they were just messing with this girl and other people in the film.
Yeah, they actually were doing like sadistic things to get these... I guess
they were trying to stimulate true pain and true fear.
Fear, yeah.
So what's the worst thing that happened as we move on from the Exorcist material to the next film? What's the worst thing that came out of this movie, Jazmine Star?
I see what you're doing here. I thought you didn't have a problem with going over tonight.
Oh, I don't, but we've got about another hour worth of stuff. I just want to make sure we get to it all. So what's the absolute cream of the crop when it comes to The Exorcist?
There's too much here.
All right, hit your favorite three.
Director William Friedkin would keep guns laying around on the set, and he would
Did you tell Alec Baldwin about that one?
And he would intermittently fire off rounds to elicit the response of fear to the cast. He also made sure that the editing was done when the film wrapped at 666 Fifth Avenue in New York City.
That is nuts.
Yes.
That is nuts.
They continued to feed off of the... all of the propaganda that they were getting from the reaction of the people. It won 7 Golden Globe nominations.
Wow.
So I'm just going to kind of break this down here. Every attempt to make a sequel since the original Exorcist 2 went way over budget, and it was a total flop.
A lot of sequels to, I mean, if something gets nominated for Best Picture or whatever, and then they make a sequel to it, without exception, almost. With, I guess the big glaring exception would probably be Star Wars, where the second movie was actually better.
Yeah.
That's kind of a normal thing, though, right? I mean, they usually flop at the box office, and they're usually not very good films.
Right. So let's see here. In September 2000, Warner Brothers re-released the movie, grossing another $100 million.
And when was this?
In 2000.
Wow, okay.
In an attempt to begin filming Exorcist: The Beginning, which was a prequel, with Liam Neeson filming the role of Jason Miller after his death, which I had to skip over. He was the original Father Karras. He did pass away. So Liam Neeson was going to take the role. Director
Well, I'm glad that didn't
John
happen.
Frankenheimer.
We need Liam Neeson. We need Qui-Gon Jinn. He's important.
Well, he ended up quitting. So John Frankenheimer says he's going to take over as the director. He dies 6 weeks before principal photography began.
Wow.
Yes. So they took in...
And this is on Exorcist 2?
This is on 3.
Wow.
Well, this is on the beginning prequel.
No, the prequel.
Yes. So Paul Schrader came in. They had Stellan Skarsgård replace Neeson. And then they began shooting. Strange things began happening as they began filming off set. One night, the fax machine turned on by itself and began printing out line after line of 6s over and over again.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
that's nutty stuff, man. Crazy. There is light at the end of the tunnel, though, because it's not just bad, terrible things that happened on film sets. Sometimes highly energetic and significant things happen on film sets too, and maybe even positive things as a result of people working on a film project. As a matter of fact, there's a film that was directed by Mel Gibson called The Passion of the Christ, which is a movie about the final, I guess, the last day of Jesus' life before he was crucified. And there's some remarkable stuff that happened on this one. I'm going to have to leave the screen cap because I have to read my own notes. We don't have a secondary display, Jazmine Star. Put that on the to-do list so that we can get one of those. But in The Passion of the Christ, Jim Caviezel, he played Jesus, of course. And did you know that he was struck by lightning on set during the filming of the Sermon on the Mount?
Wow.
It says the actor said they were filming the scene of the Sermon on the Mount in Rome when this bizarre event happened. Quote, I climbed the mountain, clouds had formed, and 5 seconds before the stroke, I had felt what was going to happen, he recalled in an interview. And then suddenly, quote, I was struck by the lightning. Caviezel said he was struck just as Gibson shouted, action. Jim Caviezel said, I was lit up like a Christmas tree. I was doing the Sermon on the Mount. I knew it was going to hit me for about 4 seconds before it happened. And I thought, I'm going to get hit. And when it happened, I saw the extras grab the ground. What they saw was fire coming out of the right and left side of my head. Illumination around the body. And during the shot, they said, do you have it on camera? What happened was Mel had said action, and the cameras were panning to me, and here is where this light just flashed. And by the time the cameras got to me, I hear Mel screaming out, what the heck happened to his hair? And I looked like I went to see Don King's hairstylist. So he goes on to say 5 minutes after I got hit, John Michelini, a PA, production assistant, walks over and says, are you okay? And then he got hit. The difference was that they saw the bolt come down and hit John. They didn't see that when I was standing there. All I felt was this giant, tremendous slap on my ears and a few seconds of pink-red static in front of my eyes. In the interview, Caviezel also revealed that after he played Jesus Christ in the movie, he was rejected by Hollywood, which isn't ultra surprising, I don't think. It's unfortunate, I guess, and sad, but not super surprising. This snub was in spite of The Passion of the Christ being a major commercial hit, earning $612 million on a $30 million production budget, making it the highest grossing religious film ever. Caviezel said, all of a sudden I stopped being one of the 5 most popular actors in the studio, and I hadn't done anything wrong. I just played Jesus. He could not explain why the industry began snubbing him after The Passion. I mean, it seems in retrospect pretty obvious, though, because if you were to take who's the leading man of right now, like Ryan Reynolds or somebody like that, maybe. Yeah. What's the guy from the movie with Lady Gaga?
Bradley Cooper.
If a guy like, because that was Jim Caviezel 25 years ago. What if a guy like Bradley Cooper went and did an honoring portrayal of Jesus Christ? Do you think he would be blacklisted? How do you think they would treat him? Do you think they would nuke his career at this point, like in this day and age?
No. I don't.
They'd let him keep trucking?
I think so.
I think they knew Caviezel had a differing view of the world back then, because right now Caviezel is in trouble for being a QAnon, being a very outspoken QAnon.
Oh, you said the Q word.
Yeah, we're busted now.
Damn it.
So, but that's not all with The Passion of the Christ. There was some other very interesting stuff. But back to him getting snubbed by Hollywood, Caviezel says, well, everyone has their cross to bear. The world changes. But I won't be in this world forever. Neither will the producers from Hollywood. The 48-year-old actor believes that it's more than coincidental that when he played the role of Jesus, he was 33, the same age as Jesus at his crucifixion. Of course, his initials are also the same initials as Jesus Christ, Jim Caviezel, JC. So he said, don't you tell me that it was a coincidence. There are no coincidences for God. Even when God resurrects the dead, they will say it happened by accident. That kind of sounds like the words of a prophet. Mm-hmm. Caviezel admitted that, like any believer, sometimes he also struggles with his faith. However, he said whatever he does, he never forgets Jesus. Caviezel also said that he would love to play a part in Gibson's planned sequel, which apparently is in production now. Now, there's a scene in that film where Caviezel is during the last stage of Christ's passion, where he's already been beaten nearly to death, and then Jesus has to carry his cross up to the place of skulls, or wherever the name of the place where he was crucified. And it says, Caviezel says, somebody hit the cross and my left shoulder was dislocated. Due to that sudden and sharp, intense pain, I lost my balance and I fell under the weight of the cross. I guess this thing weighed like 175 pounds or something like that. I hit the dusty ground with my face, and blood gushed forth and suddenly from my nose and mouth. And I repeated the words Jesus said to his mother in the script earlier in the film. Jesus said, "Look, mother, I make everything anew." And I think that was during a scene when he was a child and he healed a bird that had died, and he brought the bird back to life. So Jim Caviezel goes on to say, my shoulder was in incredible pain when I took the cross again, and I felt how precious it was. At that point, I stopped acting, and you could only see Jesus. He came forward as the answer to my prayer. I want people to see you, Jesus, and not me. And I think that probably tells you all you need to know about why they snubbed him, because he's an authentic believer, and that's probably very scary to them.
Right. Well, and Ashley says because it's a religious movie and Hollywood is not Catholic.
Hollywood is not Christian, period. In fact, Hollywood, I would just argue, is not good-natured at all. Catholic, Christian, Baptist, what have you. Right. There's evil. But there's one last little story about the spiritual and even supernatural mystique around the film The Passion of the Christ. It's a story of a young man who confessed to his girlfriend's murder as a result of watching the film. Dan Leach had been carrying the enormous guilt of snuffing out another human life for several months, but he likely would never have been caught, as the local authorities had all but ruled his girlfriend's death a suicide. After seeing the movie, Leach had a life-changing encounter with God. The movie resonated something within him as he watched the thief who was suffering on the cross beside Jesus. Dan was riveted as he watched Jesus say to the thief that despite all the sins he had committed, because he believed he would soon be with Jesus in paradise. Dan Leach wanted that. He too wanted to be with Jesus in paradise despite the horrendous sins he had committed. So he asked God to change him. On August 13th, 2004, he was sentenced to 75 years in prison. And the almighty power of God using the Passion of Christ had apparently then changed his life forever. There's an interesting parallel there between the way he was treated after coming out as a believer by admission of his sinfulness to the way Jim Caviezel, who portrayed Christ, was rejected by Hollywood after also kind of coming out as a believer and going on the record. Now, I get it. The guy deserved to go to jail. He committed a murder. But there is a strange parallel there. And what are the odds, though, of this other guy, the second guy that got struck by lightning after Jim Caviezel got struck by lightning, had also been struck by lightning earlier in the production on the set. That's like they say lightning doesn't strike twice in the same place. It struck 3 times.
That's crazy.
Yeah, crazy nuts stuff. All right. What's even more crazy than that, Jasmine Star?
Florida man.
Oh, he's the country's most prolific, crazy criminal. Florida man.
Florida man.
I've got some Halloween-themed Florida man stories that we're going to share with our audience. Thank you to everybody that's on the live chat. You know what we forgot to do? We forgot to tell everybody out there how to reach us. Do you want to let them know, Jasmine Star, so you can be in our super secret little club?
To be in our super secret club, you're right here on our YouTube channel. If you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe. Join in on the live chat and let us know that you're here. On Instagram, you can find us at Trouble239. Twitter at Tipcast239. Email trouble@trouble239.com. Our Patreon is Trouble239. And we're on all major podcast catchers for audio versions. To personally reach me, you can find me on Twitter at Jazmine Star, JazmineStarr, because I'm weird like that. 239. Instagram star_light_readings on Instagram as Jazmine Star.
And I'm reachable at Nigel Kent 239 on Twitter. I started a Telegram, Nigel Kent on Telegram. And let's see, you already mentioned the YouTube channel, at Trouble239 on Instagram. I think you mentioned that. And then if you need to email us about anything related to the show.
I did that too.
Then Jasmine's got you covered, trouble@trouble239.com. Now, how about, what if you were going fishing and you discovered that you had caught a firearm?
Yay.
I know, right? That's a good day fishing, right?
Yeah.
Fisherman finds weighted gun in Fort DeSoto. The story, which comes to us from the Tampa Bay Times, says Christopher Sacco was fighting a large fish, or so he thought. He'd already lost it once, and he wasn't going to lose it again. When he finally reeled in the line, he realized he had the catch of the day. So you've got, that is the most redundant opening paragraph ever, and they haven't even gotten to the punchline on the story yet. They wait till the second paragraph to do that.
It was not the catch of the day. It's like probably the metal dragging across the ground.
Exactly.
The weight of it.
It wasn't a fish. It was an abandoned gun. Sacco
There's no
was
such
fishing.
thing as an abandoned gun in the water.
Well,
Come on.
it was weighted. Somebody used this gun and then wanted to get rid of it.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
So this is Fort DeSoto Park, which is just south of St. Pete, I think. Mm-hmm. Before noon, when he reeled in a Publix plastic bag, inside the bag was a black revolver with a rock secured to it by red and white twine. Why would you put it in a bag first?
I know.
That's like preserving the evidence, isn't it?
I know. Unless you filled that bag with bleach before you...
Or something.
Come on, these people. This is why it's a Florida man story.
Yeah. Well, this is the kind of stuff people in Florida do. I got to get rid of the murder weapon. Let me preserve it first before I put it in the ocean.
Let me put it in a plastic bag and weigh it down, and instead of scrubbing it down with bleach and and not handling it and then just tossing it. Does that just show how sick I am? Or maybe that I had a criminal law background.
So he says, you've got to be kidding me. I found a gun. And then his friend said, are you serious? I'm like, bro, I found a freaking gun. These are the quotes that they put in the news story, Tampa Bay Times. I found a freaking gun. So Sacco called Pinellas County Sheriff's Office to report the gun. The Sheriff's Office confirmed deputies responded to a call at Fort DeSoto. Officers took possession of the gun and placed it in property and evidence. The weapon was entered into the Florida Crime Information Center and the National Crime Information Center. By the way, did you know that if you go to the Miami-Dade Police Department website, they have a list of unclaimed property?
Yeah.
And a lot of it is firearms. Mm-hmm. That's like a honeypot, right?
Right.
I mean, you don't claim any of that shit because that's how they...
Same thing with drugs.
Do they list unclaimed drugs?
Of course they do.
We've got a kilo of cocaine here. Please come and get it.
You can go to the sheriff's office here, and there's unclaimed property. And it's all been run through FCIC and NCIC. And
And they just want to know who it belongs to. So they're hanging on to it.
Yeah, it's all been fingerprinted and processed and everything, and it sits in an evidence locker waiting for some sucker to come in and get it.
What about... Well, let me just ask you this, Jasmine Starr. Let's say that you won $1 million.
Yeah.
What would you do? What's the first couple things you would do? What would be your priorities for that $1 million?
My priorities for that $1 million? Pay off my trailer.
Pay off the trailer. That's pretty sensible, right? That's grounded in reality, right?
Pay off my car and any outstanding bills I have.
There you go. Trailer, cars, bills.
Yeah.
Pretty smart stuff. Living debt free.
Yeah.
Well.
And then invest in crypto.
There appears to be a guy in Leesburg who doesn't share the same philosophy as you do. In fact, people who win lottery jackpots usually upgrade their homes, buy new cars, or take a long-deserved vacation. A Florida man who won $1 million has a more modest goal, and this is from last week.
More modest than paying off a trailer?
I know. Brian Nelson, 26, is to upgrade to an electric toothbrush. Florida lottery officials said in a news release. And if he's punking the Florida lottery with that is the best thing ever. You've just won $1 million. What are you going to do? Oh, man, I think I'm going to finally go electric on my toothbrush.
Yeah.
I'm just looking forward to upgrading to an electric toothbrush and splurging on a good pair of flip-flops, Nelson told lottery officials in a news release on Tuesday.
What's a good pair of flip-flops?
I mean... I guess the ones that don't pop, right? The ones that don't blow out.
You mean like the non-plastic ones that you get where like the toe will pop through?
Yeah,
like
and it always happens.
Like the little plug will pop through the bottom or whatever.
Who's the untalented engineer that came up with that design?
China.
And why are they so... You're gonna get us a strike. You keep bashing China.
All I said was China.
You rolled your eyes when you said it.
CCP.
All right, Smoking Gun says, cops, man, 90, slugged neighbor in get off my lawn dispute. After demanding that an interloper get off his sprawling lawn, a 90-year-old Florida man twice punched a neighbor in the face, according to cops who arrested the rowdy gentleman for battery and resisting arrest. Police say Thomas Conrad, we zoom in on Mr. Conrad there.
He looks like the dude that just got escorted out and pulled the knife at the comedy club last night.
At the local comedy club, not a sponsor. Not a sponsor.
No, I didn't say their name. Not a sponsor.
Naples has one comedy club, people. Not a sponsor. We should do our live stream there on. We should switch to Monday nights and do our live stream right from the comedy club.
I'll talk to Brian.
Not a sponsor.
I just said Brian.
So Thomas Conrad was busted Saturday afternoon following a dispute over a gardener cutting grass outside his home in Sorrento, about 30 miles from Orlando. Conrad's next-door neighbor, Jack Henson, told police that his, quote, lawn guy was being yelled at by Conrad for being on his property while cutting the grass. Conrad recalled telling the governor to get off my property, according to an arrest affidavit. After asking Conrad numerous times to leave them alone, Henson recalled an agitated and aggressive Conrad declared, "I should punch you." Henson said he replied, "Go ahead, but I wouldn't advise or the police will get involved." And then he went ahead and punched him twice. And now he's in jail. And it's sad because this is a little old man who's 90 years old who looks like he doesn't even realize why he's having his mugshot taken. I hope after they booked him,
change his clothes. Yeah, maybe they released him on ROR.
That's what I'm hoping. I hope that they didn't really book him. Hopefully they just let him go back home and maybe escort him home and then make sure nothing else happened.
Squirt him home?
Escort.
Oh, escort. I was like, what?
Maybe they just squirted him home,
I was like, what? What do you mean squirt?
All right, then we have the mad case of Richard Kruger, whose bank insisted he was dead. Have you heard about this, Florida man?
No.
The Thanatasassa man, Say that 5 times fast.
I can't even say it once.
Thanodisassa or Thonodisassa. I need somebody who's a real Florida man to be able to pronounce this for me. Come on, Florida woman. How do you say that?
Thanodisassa.
Thanodisassa. Like that?
Thanodisassa.
Okay. Thanodisassa man found his Bank of America account frozen, though he was very much alive with bills to pay. Here's what happened next. For the record, Richard J. Krueger is not dead. Krueger, 70, is in fact living his life in his cheerful-looking mobile home on his plot of land in Thanodisassa, east of Tampa. We should probably do like a top 10 list of the 10 dumbest city names in Florida. Thanodisassa would have to be on there.
Okay, no. What I want to do is the top 10 names that you can't pronounce in the state of Florida.
Well, we could just go back through our old episodes.
Matlaka.
Here we go.
Smalashay.
It's Matlaka. Matlaka. We could do it. We could do our whole open for the next episode of just all the times I've said Matlaka and made you gag a little bit because I'm like Matlaka and you're like eh. So
That's why you haven't been here long enough. That's why you're still a native Clevelander.
Am I saying Florida correctly? Or is it Florida? Dorothy?
What?
Does Florida have 2 syllables or 3? Does Dorothy have 2 syllables or 3?
2.
And I would remind you that in The Wizard of Oz, she goes, Dorothy.
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 Florida.
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 Thanodisassa. So Richard J. Krueger is not dead. In fact, I'm sorry for the last 2 minutes, everybody. Krueger, 70, is in fact living his life in his cheerful-looking mobile home on his plot of land in Thanodisassa, east of Tampa. These days, a modest monthly annuity set up by his father and a regular check from the federal government for low-income, older, or disabled people pay the bills. As is his habit, Krueger called Bank of America to check his balance. When his August electric bill came due, he got a surprise when it said no funds available. I had no money in the bank, but suddenly there was no money. Okay, apparently he likes to repeat himself too. Why? Because the bank had mysteriously determined Krueger to be dead and froze his account accordingly. On August 18th, Krueger got a friend to drive him to the Bank of America branch in Seffner, armed with his picture ID and obviously his alive self. But the bank seemed prepared for the situation. They handed Krueger with an official document titled Correction of Erroneous Deceased Report. All states except California. Used on rare occasions when someone who turned up dead in the system was actually not. It was unclear why California was excluded. Maybe because in California, dead people vote.
I was just thinking the same thing.
The form said in part, under penalty of perjury, I hereby certify that I am alive and well, and was reported deceased in error. Krueger didn't know who would have reported this or why, but he was definitely alive, so he signed it. I don't know. That's weird, right? I mean, how strange would that be if somebody said, you have to sign this to prove that you're alive? Like, I'm right here. Hi.
Right. I kind of understand that. I had a friend that went to high school around here and had a little experience where he took some medications over the weekend, and the ambulance was called, and they did perform CPR on him. So the rumors went flying that he was dead, and he went to school on Monday morning, and as he was sitting in homeroom, they make an announcement over the news that they lost one of the students over the weekend and announced his name, and he was actually sitting there in the classroom. So
awesome.
I can kind of see how this could happen.
So what followed was a frustrating tangle of trying to undo this mysterious report of his demise. His sister Ann Kruger, who lives in California and has his power of attorney, said they were told it would take a couple of days, but his account stayed stubbornly frozen. She kept calling the bank and kept getting all associates are busy, called back, and yada, yada, yada. So eventually they did get to the bottom of this thing, but, it's just a shame that this kind of stuff happens to the elderly because their whole world was probably simpler when they were younger and had all of their faculties.
Right.
Or more of their faculties. And I'm not trying to say that all elderly people have reduced faculties, but the ones I know certainly do. Man threatened to blow up Disney executive homes, ranted about Activision, and sent 186 tweets in 3 hours, according to deputies. I've sent 186 tweets in 3 hours. I think you have too.
I have not.
Well, yeah, I mean, you didn't. Not 186 threatening tweets.
No, I've never sent 186 tweets in 3 hours.
Oh, you definitely. Yeah. It's like 100 tweets an hour sometimes.
Oh, what?
With retweets, counting retweets?
No.
Oh. So what's your real life tweet rate?
I have an impaired processing speed, so mine is lower than that.
I forgot about the IPS. So Stephen James Jordan, a man went on a prolific tweet storm ranting about a video game company's ongoing legal problems and threatening to blow up Disney executives' homes, according to Florida authorities. Deputies arrested Stephen James Jordan, 31, on Thursday and booked him into the Pinellas County Jail. Here we go with Pinellas County. According to authorities, Jordan made a Twitter account on Sunday, and it quickly went off the rails. Jordan made 186 posts within 3 hours. The suspect made a total of more than 200 tweets on the account, and he was arrested because he allegedly wrote Disney some threatening tweets going as far as to tag them, Disney, or we will blow up all of your execs' houses with C4. At
Nice.
Disney, I will toss a hand grenade through their loft window. And he misspelled through. He did
THREW.
Yes. Okay.
That's like your and your.
He even made comments about Activision. Several other tweets directed toward Activision games in reference to their video games, derogatory comments about their executives, and other current litigation issues. The California Department of Fair Employment and Housing sued video game giant Activision Blizzard last month, saying that a 2-year investigation found prolific discrimination and harassment by the company against female employees. Twitter suspended Jordan's account Monday, August 9th, and Pinellas County Sheriff's Office Threat Management Section detectives worked through the... Detectives were sitting around on Twitter.
Does that surprise you?
No. I mean, there's information there, but this is like, I don't know. I got to move on. How about this one? Nearly $13 million stolen from a health fund spent at adult website in University of South Florida embezzlement case.
Ooh.
That's a lot of porn.
Lot. Yeah.
A former accounts manager for a nonprofit affiliated with the University of South Florida's medical school has pled guilty to embezzling $13 million. And that's why medical care is so expensive. Spending most of it at an adult website with some of it coming back to him. The Tampa Bay Times reports that Ralph Puglisi, 59, is facing up to 20 years in prison under the deal, which was recently filed in Tampa's federal court. Puglisi had worked for the University Medical Service Association, which provides staffing and support for USF Health and other medical providers in the Tampa Bay area. According to court documents, Puglisi spent almost $12 million at an adult website that allows users to subscribe to channels belonging to specific women who disrobe and engage in sex acts on live video. I think in the interest of full disclosure, shouldn't they probably tell us which porn website he spent all of his money on? $13 million to one website. It's relevant which website it is, don't you think?
And not unless you plan on using it.
Well, $13 million to one website. That's a lot. He's already a VIP on that website. They probably give him free meals and stuff. Moving on. Florida police warn woman not to wear Halloween costume at protest. Hollywood, Florida. This is near north of Miami. A South Florida woman says she was warned by local police. We got voiceover only. Here, let me see if I can fix that. Jazmine, talk for a second.
What we have voiceover only.
Oh, I see. There we go. There's us. There's us.
We are here.
We are here. We're still here. Jazmine, tell a story.
What would you like to hear a story about?
There
I
we
want to hear
go.
from Dot Connector. This
We're
Disney
back.
execs are too busy at Club 33 to be home. I'm not familiar with Club 33.
That must be something that Disney execs spend a little bit of time at. We need to get Dot Connector on an actual
Dot Connector's got a lot of info.
Yes,
yeah.
he does. He has a lot of dots. He's connected a lot of dots. He does a lot of comments when I post on Twitter. I'm like, dude, he's way ahead of me. Thank you for being way ahead of me, Dot Connector. So a South Florida woman says she was warned by a local police officer not to wear a Halloween costume that is designed like a condo building project that she and others oppose, since it would be considered a protest for which she needs a permit. Kat Uden told the South Florida Sun Sentinel that the officer told her that if she wore the costume to the city of Hollywood's Hollywood Halloween block party, that it would be considered a planned protest march. Uden says that she still plans to wear the costume, but that she won't bring along her 12-year-old son. I don't want him to see me getting harassed by the police. So the police are pissed because she's going to wear a costume that looks like a building tower that she's opposing the building of. And they're saying that she has to permit the use of that costume because it's a planned protest. I mean, that's a censorship thing, right?
Everything is censored now.
I might have to get Kat Uden on the Big Tech Watchdog podcast. And this is from today. Interestingly, Uden has been a leading critic of the developer's plan to build a 30-story condo on taxpayer-owned beachfront land. The land is currently home to a park with a community center. On Facebook, Uden urged other opponents of the development to wear a costume like hers, designed like a condo building, or to bring signs that said no condo to the Halloween block party. A few days after she posted the message, Uden said she got a call from the local police lieutenant.
For dressing like a condo?
For talking about a costume party on Facebook.
But she wanted to dress like a condo?
She wanted to dress like a condo. Unbelievable.
You know what happens when you dress like a condo and you have too much to drink?
You topple over.
Seaside.
Yeah.
Hashtag too soon.
Hashtag, yeah. Pancake collapse. Yeah, after I drink too much, 2 a.m. rolls around, I'm hitting Denny's having a pancake collapse. I told him it's a costume party, she said. I don't consider it a demonstration, and that's why I didn't apply for a permit. So they want her to pay for a permit to wear a costume to a Halloween party. This is the world we live in.
That's ridiculous.
So I have one more story, but it is not related to a Florida man or only in Florida stuff.
Okay.
What do you think the most popular Hollywood Halloween costume is right now, this year in 2021, the year of our Lord?
Well, let's go, Brandon.
It should be, right?
No?
It's got to be, like among adults. But everything in the media operates on a delay. And according to the media today, Fox 5 San Diego says that the number one adult costume...
They just don't want to admit it.
The number one adult costume is witch.
Oh.
So you're winning. Let's do a quick recap on who's in the live chat. We have Dot Connector. We have Ashley. Thank you for joining.
Yes.
I know they got a couple silent lurkers out there.
I know.
Dot Connector says 2 children disappear at Disney per day.
Well, you know they have that underground city.
Well, they do have tunnels underneath the whole thing. I know that.
I mean, it's like legit an entire underground city. My dad's been down there before and said it's absolutely, it just...
How do you get in the underground of Disney?
Well, he had written a song, and the Disney band played his arrangement.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So
And that's how you get into the secret Disney underground?
I guess so. I mean, he also wrote a song that they used when the Pope came into town. University of Maryland played it, and that was the procession for the Pope.
Is that how he got into Side R?
He's never been to Side R.
So everybody check out episode 59 of Trouble in Paradise, which is our expose, our deep expose on the underground Pentagon.
Yes.
Site R in, what city is it in?
Carroll Valley, Pennsylvania. Fairfield, Pennsylvania.
Raven Rock.
Fairfield, Pennsylvania.
And then, of course, last episode was episode 60. We had banned censored comedian Josh Denny, who's apparently very, very offensive to everybody in Hollywood and the people running Twitter. Hashtag delete Facebook. We didn't even talk about Meta. Have you read all this crap about Facebook changing to Meta?
Yeah, I've started to dive into that a little bit, and I just think
it would be disturbing if it wasn't absolutely silly. But this is about, it's not people our age that it's going to affect. It's the people who are 20 and 30 and dare I say 40 years behind us that are going to be wrapped up in this thing.
Yeah.
I do plan on covering Meta, the Meta company, on Big Tech Watchdog. Check out bigtechwatchdog.com. That's my free speech podcast.
Once Musk has installed all the Neuralinks and people 5G and Starlink are online and things become activated within people's bodies, Meta will take off.
Are we even going to talk about organic magnetic materials in people's bloodstreams and brains and lungs, which have entered their systems by virtue of,
that's like really spooky stuff when you start to think about like graphene and hydrogel.
Nah, be careful.
What?
Don't say any of the banned words, man.
No, I'm just talking about...
I haven't finished setting up our Rumble yet.
I'm just talking about components that exist in nature synthetically.
Deadpan. Deadpan. All right, well, everybody, we are going
You know what that means, right?
It means that we're going to go celebrate Halloween and go to bed, which is what I'm about to do. But
that means it is time to stay out of trouble.
It is time to stay out of trouble. And at Tipcast239 Twitter, we'll see you all in 2 weeks right here on this channel here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe, smash, and 5-star review everything.
Yes.
Subscribe and smash. That's all you got to do.
Yep.
Jazmine, hit it.
Hit what?
Hit your speech, your YouTube speech, so we don't get banned.
The content presented by Trouble in Paradise contains speculation and conjecture and is not intended as educational material or advice. It is therefore not misinformation
here we go.
And does adhere to YouTube's community guidelines.
Let me give it a shot. Here, let me see. I want to do it in a different accent. The content presented by Trouble in Paradise contains speculation and conjecture. Is that how you say conjecture?
Conjecture.
Conjectory. And is not intended as educational material or advice. It is therefore not. It's off the rails now. It's not misinformation.
No, don't worry. People in Lehigh are going to understand you.
And What in the hell? What in the hell? What does adhere mean?
Adhere.
You get adhere.
You get out here.
YouTube's community guidelines. Okay. Everybody, have a great night. Thanks for putting up with us. We will see you next time.
Have a happy Halloween, everyone.
How do you turn this thing off?